No more crazy Hebrews all over the place. This is what we're going to do. We are going to have every Hebrew boy that's born from now on, we're just going to chuck them in the Nile River. Be done. That's how we're going to control the Hebrew population. Really, really harsh stuff. And so Moses' mother, she did not want Moses to suffer this horrible fate. And so she hid Moses for as long as she possibly could. And then when she couldn't hide him any longer, when Moses was just a few months old, she decided this is what I'm going to do to save my son's life. I'm going to put him in a basket and just float him down the Nile River so maybe he will have a chance to live, to grow up and live. And wouldn't you know it, Moses floats his way right into the arms of Pharaoh's daughter. And Pharaoh's daughter decides, I am going to make this Hebrew baby my own child. And so Pharaoh's daughter takes Moses in. She's the one that names Moses, gives Moses his name, for I took him up out of the water, out of the Nile River. She gives Moses his name. Moses is incredibly blessed to escape this horrible fate that is so often a lot of Hebrew children do not survive. And he's able to grow up in luxury and comfort in the presence of the royal family. Well, eventually Moses grows up and he decides to kind of step out of his life of comfort, and he sees how his fellow Hebrews live. He sees the oppression of his people. And one day he sees an Egyptian badly mistreat a Hebrew. And it got to the point where it angered Moses so greatly that he went over and killed the Egyptian. And he tries to cover it up. But the next day, he sees two Hebrews fighting. He just says, guys, what are you doing? You're brothers. You shouldn't be fighting. And that one Hebrew just says to him, who made you ruler and judge over us? You going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian yesterday? And by this, Moses knows that his secret is out, and that Pharaoh, he's going to do everything he possibly can to kill him. And so Moses does the only thing that he thinks he can do. He runs away. He runs away to Midian, where he becomes a shepherd. And so while he's a shepherd, while he's tending his flocks one day, he comes across a very, very strange sight. He comes across a burning bush, which, oddly enough, I was researching this, burning bush, not that uncommon with how hot it is in the desert. Bushes just go into flames whenever. But this one was different. See, this burning bush, it didn't burn up. And so Moses went a little closer to investigate. And it's from this burning bush that he heard the voice of God. So let's hear the conversation that God has with Moses. Starting in Exodus 3, verse 7, it says this. The Lord said, I've indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I've heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you. And this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. Moses said to God, but suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, "Say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, the name you shall call me from generation to generation. Go assemble the elders of Israel and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, appeared to me and said, I have watched over you and have seen what has been done to you in Egypt. And I have promised to bring you up out of your misery in Egypt into the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. The elders of Israel will listen to you. Then you and the elders are to go to the king of Egypt and say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. Let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless a mighty hand compels him. So I will stretch out my hand and strike the Egyptians with all the wonders that I will perform among them. After that, he will let you go. And I will make the Egyptians favorably disposed towards this people, so that when you leave, you will not go empty-handed. Every woman is to ask her neighbor and any woman living in her house for articles of silver and gold and for clothing, which you will put on your sons and daughters, and so you will plunder the Egyptians. Moses answered, what if they don't believe me or listen to me and say, the Lord did not appear to you? Then the Lord said to him, what is that in your hand? A staff, he replied. The Lord said, throw it on the ground. Moses threw it on the ground, and it became a snake, and he ran from it. Then the Lord said to him, reach out your hand and take it by the tail. So Moses reached out and took hold of the snake, and it turned back into the staff in his hand. This, said the Lord, is so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. Then the Lord said, put your hand inside your cloak. So Moses put his hand into his cloak, and when he took it out, the skin was leprous. It had become as white as snow. Now put it back into your cloak, he said. So Moses put his hand back into his cloak, and when he took it out, it was restored, like the rest of his flesh. Then the Lord said, if they do not believe you or pay attention to the first sign, they may believe the second. But if they do not believe these 2 signs or listen to you, take some water from the Nile and pour it on the dry ground. The water you take from the river will become blood on the ground. Moses said to the Lord, pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I'm slow of speech and tongue. The Lord said to him, who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. But Moses said, pardon your servant, Lord. Please send someone else. Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, what about your brother Aaron the Levite? I know he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you, and he will be glad to see you. You shall speak to him and put words in his mouth. I will help both of you speak and will teach you what to do. He will speak to the people for you, and it will be as if he were your mouth and as if you were God to him. But take the staff in your hand so you can perform the signs with it. Again, perfect example of how God is not looking for passive recipients, but he's looking for active participants to partner with him to do his work. And God is asking Moses a big thing. He is calling Moses to participate in a huge way to lead God's people out of slavery, to lead them out of Egypt. And so we enter into this back and forth between Moses and God. I mean, God is absolutely calling Moses to do something that is way out of his comfort zone and way beyond his natural ability. And Moses, he is definitely sure to let God know that. We enter into this back and forth where Moses is just like, well, God, I know what you're calling me to do, but let me tell you, this is why that I cannot do it. And you have God on the other side who's just saying, it is not about you. You're not the one doing it. I'm the one doing it through you. I am the one that will help you. And this goes back and forth for some time with Moses giving excuses and God saying, it's not about you, it's about me. I'm the one that's going to do it. Come on. It finally gets to the point where Moses realizes, I am not going to talk my way out of this because God has an answer for every single excuse that I have. And so Moses just says, God, please send someone else. And God denies Moses' request. He just says to him, no, I have specifically called you to do this specific thing. Again, it is not about you. I'm not calling you to do this on your own. I'm calling you to do this with me. I am going to help you. I'm going to be the empowering force behind what I am calling you to do. I will give you absolutely everything that you need to be successful, to follow through with what I am calling you to do. God's giving Moses all the right tools. He's giving Moses everything that he needs to fulfill the call that God has on his life. And spoiler alert, we'll learn this later, but that's exactly what happens. And the same God that called Moses is the same God who is still calling people today. He is the same God who calls us today. We celebrate communion. We celebrate the fact that God has broken the barrier of sin that separates us from him. All of us who have accepted Jesus into our lives, all of us who have accepted Christ's sacrifice, all of us who have entered into a relationship with God, we all have a call placed on each and every one of our lives. God has made it plain to anyone who would call themselves his disciples. He's made it clear to them, this is the mandate I give to you. This is the call that I lay upon each and every one of your lives. Go and make disciples. And God calls our church, he calls us as individuals to do this very thing in very specific ways. And yes, a lot of times, it may be out of our comfort zones. It may be something that is beyond our natural ability that we're not strong in. But guess what? Where we are weak, God is strong. We don't have to be afraid. We're not the ones accomplishing God's mission. God isn't saying, okay, here's what I want you to do. Go do it. I'll wait. God's not doing that. He's saying, this is the call that I have on your life, and I will go with you. I will help you. God is calling us, don't be afraid. Make the choice. Take that step of faith and just follow the call that I have for you. Don't make excuses. Anyone can make excuses. But not everyone can just simply say, yes, God, even though this is way beyond me. This is out of my comfort zone. God, I'm still going to do it. But God, I'm doing this trusting that you are going to be with me, trusting that you will help me. And guess what? God will help. God is calling us. God is calling our church. And today I want to challenge us in a very specific way. I believe that God is leading our church in very specific ways. I believe that God is calling us to receive his love, to grow in his love, and to show his love, and to partner with others, to show others that they are called to do the same things. I believe that God is calling us to do this to help people in their journeys, to help us in our journeys by doing these things, by going out and serving our community, by using this building to serve the community, by discipling those we serve in a broad sense and in a very micro sense in terms of children, youth, young adults, adults. This is how God is leading our church to do these things. And guess what? Each and every one of us who calls Westside Church of the Nazarene home, I fully believe that God is calling all of us, not just some of us, but all of us, to take a part in that mission. Whether it be going out and serving the community, taking a big part in that, whether it be being a part of a team that uses this building to serve others, whether it be working with the children, working with the youth, working with the young adults, whatever, God is calling each and every one of us in very specific ways. And we need to do our part and just simply open up our hearts and minds and be willing to hear God's call. He is calling. We just simply have to listen to him. And more than that, we have to be courageous. Even though these details aren't worked out all in front of us, we can be confident that God will still work everything out, and that when God calls us to do something, we can say, God, even though I have no idea what's in front of me, even though this is out of my comfort zone, even though this is not what I'm good at, I'm going to obey you because I know that you are with me. I know that I'm not doing this on my strength, but I am doing this on your strength. Let's not be afraid. Let's not shut God out. Let's not bombard him with excuses of, God, I can't do this, and this is why. Because it is not about us and what we can do, but it's all about God and what he can do through us. And I am so confident that he who began a good work in us will indeed carry it on to completion. God is faithful. Let's hear his call. And more than that, let's respond and see what God will do through us. Let's pray. God, we just thank you so much that you don't want us just to be passive recipients, but you call us to have an active part in your story of redemption, a story that's going on that will last forever. We can have an eternal part in this. And God, that's exactly what you call us to. God, I pray that we wouldn't shut out your call or stop listening, but that we would actively listen. God, you want to speak to us. And God, I believe that you are speaking to us in this moment, and we want to just give you this opportunity for you to speak, for us just to listen. It's one of those awkward and uncomfortable things, but we need to take the discipline just to listen to you, and so we listen to you in this moment. God, you're not on our schedule. You're not on our timing. We can't force you to speak to us when we want you to speak to us. God, we always have to be disciplined, to actively just set aside time just to listen to you. And we believe that you are still calling today, that you will call each and every one of us to specifically take part in the ministry of this church, to help others, just to receive your love, to grow in your love, and to show your love by serving, by stewarding, by discipling. God, I pray that we would hear your call. I pray that you would indeed call us and that we would listen to you and that we would be strong and courageous and take that faithful step and just say, God, I don't know what's in front of me, but I'm going to do what you are asking me to do. And more than that, I know I'm trusting you to be faithful. I'm trusting you to provide me with what I need. And God, we know that you equip the called. You are with the called. You are faithful to the called. And God, we know and we trust and we believe that you will be faithful to us. Lead us, and may we listen to you. We love you, Lord. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Close in worship.